You know the silence just before the confession? Not the quiet of an empty room, the silence of a throat too afraid to speak what the heart already knows. There are places in this country where the land doesn't forget, where history didn't just happen, it infected. This is not a ghost story. Ghosts are echoes. This is a covenant, a vow whispered not to God, but to the void that wears his face. Gather close, quiet your breath. This is the Dread Codex. And our story begins not with a knock at the door, but with a knock inside it. I don't pick up hitchhikers. I don't ignore the warnings of gas station attendants with funeral eyes. And I never, ever take shortcuts through mountain passes after sundown. Let me tell you why. Last autumn, my father's farm was repossessed. The silence in that empty farmhouse wasn't just absence, it was accusation. So when my old friends suggested a reunion in the Blue Ridge Mountains, I said yes like a drowning man grabbing a rope. We rented a cabin near Mercy's End, North Carolina. The rental agent didn't smile. Her fingers trembled as she slid the keys toward me. "Don't go near Chimney Rock after dark," she said. "And if you hear singing, it's not singing. It's bait," we laughed. We were foolish. Ben, the photographer, the romantic, said, "Every haunting is just a story waiting for a witness." He didn't understand. Some stories don't want a witness. They want a participant. The cabin wasn't a cabin. It was a trap dressed in pine and stone. The key didn't turn, it sank, like turning a lock in a coffin. The first night, Ben went out to smoke. He came back inside, his face moon pale. "Do you hear her?" he whispered. "She's singing down by the creek." We heard nothing but water. We called him paranoid. The next day, Ben vanished on the trail. We found him standing before a lightning-split oak, staring at a cairn of river stones. At its center, a tarnished silver locket, open, empty. "She's so lonely," he said, and took it. That night, the air grew thick enough to swallow. The lights pulsed, not with electricity, but with a low, harmonic hum. A woman's voice, woven from chimney wind and pipe water. Singing a hymn I remembered from childhood revivals, but the words were wrong. "I will cling to the old rugged mountain where the deepest dark dwells." Mason started coughing. He excused himself, came back trembling, and spat into the sink, a clump of black moss glistening with something metallic. Ben stood at the window, whispering to his own reflection. "She told me about the fire," he murmured. "The revival tent, Mercy's End, 1930. They called it the Spirit's Fervor, 70 souls baptized in flame. She didn't die. She married the hunger that remained. We ran for the SUV. The engine wouldn't turn over. Outside, between the pines, a pale shape keeping pace. Luke called Jed, the groundskeeper. He answered on the first ring. Y'all took something that wasn't yours. His voice was gravel and regret. She's a bride of the gorge. Her wedding party burned. Now she collects a new one. Go back inside. Lock the door. Do not open it, no matter who you hear calling. We barricaded ourselves in. Then tap, tap, tap. Not on the door, on the walls. And Mason's voice from outside the window, "Guys, let me in." I'm scared, but Mason was right beside me, his hand clamped over his mouth, eyes wide as headstones. The temperature dropped. Frost crystallized on the window pane, spelling words in icy cursive. "Bring my groom to the stone." Ben stood. His movements were fluid, alien. "It's time," he said, but his voice was layered with hers, a grotesque duet. He walked to the door and began unbuckling the lock. We fought him. His skin was cold as river clay. His strength wasn't human. When the door opened, the world outside was gone. In its place, a cathedral of charred trees stretching into forever. And walking toward us, the bride. A column of wedding lace, scorched and fused to a form that was only suggestion. Where her face should have been, a smooth, pale river stone etched with the faintest scream of features. From the seams of her dress, a slow, constant drip of dark syrup. Drip, drip, drip. She reached out a hand. Not to Ben. To me. Ben's head tilted, the blended voice speaking. She says you have the hollow heart. The empty spaces. You will be the witness. I didn't run toward her. I ran to the fireplace, grabbed the iron poker, and swung at the chimney breast where the singing swelled. The iron struck stone with the sound of a shattered bell. A crack split the wall, and from it, a geyser of black, freezing water, smelling of rot and funeral lilies. The bride shrieked, a sound of breaking glass and splitting earth. Luke tackled Ben, pried the locket from his hand, but it wasn't in his hand. It was fused to his palm, silver melted into skin like a brand. Luke took the poker and tore it free. A piece of Ben came with it. He threw the locket into the dying fire. It didn't melt. It screamed. The world snapped back. We were in the cabin. The door opened to an ordinary night. Ben lay on the floor, a collapsed puppet. The SUV started on the first try. We drove until dawn, a silent caravan of shattered men. A clinic in the next town. An old doctor with Appalachia carved into his face. He looked at Ben's seared palm, looked at our eyes, and didn't ask questions. "Y'all been to Mercy's End," he said. He gave us a vial of spring water. "Wash the wound with this. Then go back. Bury the locket under the blasted oak. Use an iron tool. And speak the 23rd Psalm backwards." We did. As Luke muttered the inverted psalm, the ground sighed. The air stilled. The dripping in our minds stopped. We thought it was over. But a covenant cannot be broken, only transferred. Ben's in a facility now. He paints the same portrait every day, a woman of stone and lace, her hand outstretched. He titles each one The Waiting. Mason coughs up black moss every autumn. Doctors call it environmental exposure. He calls it her bouquet. And Luke, last week his tap water ran dark and sweet like old honey for exactly 1 minute. And through his baby monitor, a soft gurgling coo, harmonizing with a distant, distorted hymn. My guilt is the anchor. I chose the cabin. I had the hollow heart. And last night, in my Ohio apartment, 1,000 miles from those mountains, my new radiator began to knock. Tap, tap, tap. Not the sound of expanding metal. The rhythm of a wedding march. And from the vent, a voice woven from Ben's serenity and Mason's despair, whispered into the dark of my room, "The stone is waiting, groom. The mountain does not forget its vows. We are always listening." This is the story of the Bride of Mercy's End. It is not a haunting. It is a betrothal. The most profound terrors are not the ones that break in, but the ones we invite in, mistaking loneliness for solace and possession for communion. So listen closely. If you are called to the deep scarred places, if you find an artifact that seems to pulse with memory, if you hear a song that promises to fill your hollow spaces, walk away. Some invitations are not to a reunion, but to a wedding from which there is no waking. If you have a story that haunts you, send it to contact.thedreadcodex@gmail.com. Your truth becomes our tale. Your likes and comments keep these stories alive. Until next time, may your path be lit. May your vows be your own. Good night for now.